your hands in the air, put a candle up and sing. Oh yeah, shalom, b'chayre, shalva, b'yaminotayim.
Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. How beautiful is that? Oh my goodness. That was Yehi Shalom, the Reb Shlomo Carlebach melody, sung, of course, by Moshe Storch. How are you, my holy sisters and brothers? It's great to be with you midweek. We can start saying good Shabbos already. Let's light up the darkness. Who is gonna be with us tonight? We have a very interesting top of the show, as you will see. Let's see who's gonna be with us for this journey. Some of you may have been surprised when I said that this is about the inner meaning of Psalm 26. Where does it say Psalm 26 on today's daf, today's page of the Talmud? Nowhere. We'll explain. Who's going to be with us? Crystal Dahlberg with us from Canada. Stephen is in New Hampshire. James says shalom from Indianapolis. Sandy with us from Michigan. Melissa in Great Neck. Renee in Indy. Christo in Lubbock. Gail in Virginia. Carly, love the song. It's beautiful. Linda with us from Ohio. Shmuela from Tacoma, Washington. Lucy from blizzardy Minnesota. Wow, Minnesota, December, January, February. I can't imagine it. You are coming from tough stock, people who live in Minnesota. Bill says shalom. I know he's in Arkansas. Chaim from Charlotte. John says Sedona, baby. Joanne with us from Somerset, Texas. Rana Yamin Afzal says G. I think that's good. Paco Gomez with us from Mexico. He says shalom. Judith in Arizona. Yael in California. Stephen in Oklahoma. Angie in Columbus. Cindy in Alaska. Yanko in Shalom from California. Susan in Tennessee. And Paco has his friend Nico Cohen in Israel. Over there, let's see. Anybody with us on the YouTube side? Oh, yeah. Samantha says shalom from Tacoma, Washington, and Baruch Hashem. And Marilyn with us from Fort Worth, Texas. Welcome, everybody. It's great to be together. All right, we have a very special dedication tonight of our episode of AT Daily. Tonight's dedication comes from Ron Werner in Denver, Colorado. And he shared, he's dedicating tonight's episode to the memory of his mother, Florence Werner. May her memory always be for a blessing. But he told me the story about her passing, and I was so moved that I wanted to do something tonight that we haven't done before. So, all right, so Ron writes, my mother, Florence Werner, Fluma bat Shlomo v'Bluma, of blessed memory, passed away. So Fluma and her parents were Shlomo and Bluma. And she passed away on June 30th. I'm so sorry, Ron. There's never a good time. And she passed away after 2 declining years with declining cognitive function and a month after a stage 4 lung cancer diagnosis, even though she never picked up a single cigarette in her whole life. Ron writes that he read Psalm 26 multiple times when he was acting as her shomer. So in Jewish tradition, when someone dies, so the body is in this kind of suspended state until it goes into the ground. And in the Jewish tradition, ideally a person dies, he's going to be buried that day, the same day, or at least within 24 hours. It's only in very exceptional circumstances that we would wait longer than that. And that whole time that the body is awaiting burial, the tradition is that it's never left alone. Ideally, someone, even of the family member, but at least someone, is sitting there with the body, and they're usually reading Psalms. So usually this is taken on, this job of sitting with the body by somebody from the Hever Kadisha, the Holy Society. There's usually a volunteer group in every community and people who do this. So somebody wasn't available from the society, so Ron did it personally for his mom. And he was drawn to Psalm 26. He says, I read Psalm 26 multiple times when I served as her shomer for the first couple of hours prior to being properly replaced. I then read it at her graveside, and I read it in her name. I read it in her name each Friday when I lead my newly formed Baruch HaMishpacha, his sort of family and people who are as close as family. And I got to say, a lot of people are doing this now. They're having like a Zoom meeting Friday afternoon before Shabbos starts to bring in Shabbos together. And Ron is not a rabbi, as he's the first to admit, but he's leading a Friday night service for his family as an untrained, unordained, go with the flow Rabbi Ron. He asks us to remember Florence Werner as a woman of valor, a Madame Butterfly because she was so into opera all her life. She was into needlepoint. She collected art glass at an extremely high level, so much so that her collection is going to be donated to the museum at the University of Miami. She made a great banana cake and she loved bridge. So I really identify with this because my mom, before she had her cognitive decline, my mother tragically has dementia now, and sort of, we lost the ability to speak with her. It's been 5 years. Before that, she was a ranked master bridge player. And I shared this story with Ron some time ago when I was speaking at an event in Denver. And many people here in the community have heard my story of being present when my grandmother, Magda, left this world. She had lost her husband 53 years earlier in the Holocaust. Her name was Magda, his was Imre. They were one of those great loves, and she was just waiting all her life to be reunited with him. And I was present at her bedside when she transitioned from this world, and I mean that word, transitioned from this world. And what can I say? I saw with my eyes her soul be reunited with her Beshert, with her soulmate, with her Imre. Just this last glimpse that she allowed me to have before she left this world of her rejoining with her husband, with whom she'd been longing to be with him for 53 years. So I'm very, what can I say? I'm a sucker for transition stories. So when Ron sent me this dedication, he told me that he personally read Psalm 26 repeatedly as a shomer for his mom and at her graveside, and now still, for the family, as in these family gatherings at a Friday Zoom. I went and checked out Psalm 26. I haven't, read it recently. It wasn't at the tip of my tongue. It's a very short psalm, 12 verses, and I'm going to read it for us, and I'm going to read it slowly. And I'd like you to think about a little bit of Florence Werner, because we're now going to read a psalm together in her merit. May her neshama, her soul, have a great aliyah, a great elevation in the world of souls. And I've read psalms before on live broadcast, and I've even led us in prayer. Usually when we do a Misha Beirach, or when I read the Hallel ceremony, when we have a Hallel for Rosh Chodesh, for example. But what I'd like to do now is I'd like us to genuinely pray together. And what's interesting about Psalm 26, it's the psalmist, it's King David speaking, and he's talking, about sort of that he wants to be judged by God, and that basically he wants to be judged because he is blameless. Now, there are episodes from David's life where one could say, was he really blameless? People go back and forth on that. Some say yes, some say no. But there's something about this psalm that I find so beautifully aspirational. It reminded me of another verse from Psalms, Psalm 37, verse 25, which we say all the time. It's the conclusion of the grace after meal. So whenever we have bread with a meal, and then we say the grace afterwards, the Birkat Hamazon. So near the end, we say, I have been young and now am grown old, yet I have never seen the righteous man forsaken or his children begging for bread. Now, we've all heard that, tragically too many times in this world, there are very righteous people who are not wealthy, and some are even dirt poor. And they do everything right in this world, and then somehow they lose everything. And it's not their fault, and it's certainly not because they were unrighteous or sinned or did something wrong. It's just the way of the world that sometimes the righteous are suffer and the wicked prosper. But what I've been taught when we read this line, I've been young, I've been old, I've never seen a righteous man forsaken or his children begging for bread. It's an aspirational verse because I want to be able to say that I never walked past a righteous man who was forsaken and I forsook him, right? That when I see somebody down on their luck, I give them, if not money, at least time, a smile, the time of day, my attention, but preferably some tzedakah, some charity. So when I read Psalm 26, I feel like if we can really sink into these words and think about, if I'm falling short of the kind of status in life that David is describing, so maybe I can do better, right? So maybe I can do better. I want to be able to say these words about myself in truth. And if I realize I'm falling short, well, then by saying David's words and saying I want to be able to say it and it be true, and I think it's going to help me refine my behavior and elevate my behavior and make me more of that mensch that I want to be and that King David was talking about in this psalm. So I'll be reading the translation of Psalm 26 from the Koran Tehillim, the Koran book of Psalms. It's a beautiful, beautiful job that they did. Psalm 26, reading it as a prayer of David. Judge me, Lord, for I have led a blameless life. I have trusted in the Lord. I have not wavered. Test me, Lord, and try me. Probe my heart and mind. For your loving kindness is ever before my eyes. I walk continually in your truth. I do not sit in the company of false men or associate with hypocrites. I detest the company of evildoers and refuse to sit with the wicked. I wash my hands in innocence and join the procession around your altar, singing songs of thanksgiving and telling all your wondrous deeds. Lord, I love the house where you dwell, the place where your glory resides. Do not sweep my soul away with sinners, nor my life with bloodthirsty men, in whose hands are evil schemes, and whose right hand is full of bribes. As for me, I lead a blameless life. Redeem me and be merciful to me. My foot stands on level ground. In the assemblies, I will bless the Lord. My friends, none of us are blameless, but let us aspire to a time when we can speak those words of David and that they are true. And we say, Amen. Thank you, Ron, for dedicating tonight's show in honor of your mom, Florence Werner. And I think that she's smiling in Shemayim for sure to know that so many of us tonight participated in reading and listening to Psalm 26 as a prayer in the merit of Florence Werner. We say Amen. All right. Let's get to work. We have a very interesting daf. We are moving on. Where are we? We're holding... We're in the fourth tractate of the Talmud, Pesachim, the laws of Passover. We're in chapter 2. This is Daf Lamed Beis, page 32. And today we are discussing the fifth Mishna of chapter 2. In this chapter, we've been examining what it means for a Jew to possess chametz, leavened bread, which is prohibited to possess during Passover. We understand the basic prohibition: prohibited to possess it, prohibited to eat it, prohibited to benefit from it. Almost all agree on that third one. But sometimes it's not so clear whether somebody actually possesses it. Yesterday we had a discussion. It was complicated, it was difficult, but where the chametz was used as collateral for a loan, does one actually possess it? Then we looked at what happens if there's a rock slide over the chametz, so you know that there's bread in your house, but you can't get at it, it's buried. Do you actually possess it? Okay, so today we're going to look at something that we've touched on before, which is when the chametz, the leaven, is in the form of teruma, meaning that it's leaven, it's chametz, it's bread, but it has already been tithed and set aside for the priests. Now that it's for the priest's use, that means it's consecrated. It's a level of holiness has attached to it, and that means that a non-priest, a Jew who's not a priest, is not permitted to eat this teruma. So what if there's teruma and it's chametz? It's not all teruma is bread. Teruma can be in many forms. Could be fruit, for example, or olive oil. But this teruma is in the form of bread, or at least leavened products. It's set aside for the priest. Now let's say that a Jew transgresses the prohibition on eating chametz during Passover, but the chametz that he eats, the leavened bread that he eats during Passover, also happens to be teruma. It was consecrated for the use of a priest only. What then results? Let's read the Mishna. Mishnah number 5 here in chapter 2, Tractate Pesachim. If one unwittingly eats teruma of chametz, of leavened bread, on Passover, not realizing that the food was teruma, that it was consecrated for the use of the priest, then he must pay the principal and an additional fifth. This is the standard penalty when a non-priest consumes something that belonged to the priests, or even worse, if it was kadosh, right? If it belonged to the temple, if it had been consecrated for the altar, or had been donated for the use of the temple. So you must replace what you use, what you had no right to use, because it's not for you, it's holy, it's set aside for the priests and for the temple, and the penalty of an additional 20%. As the explanation here says, this is because one who unwittingly eats teruma must compensate the priest for the value of the teruma and add a fifth of the value, even though the teruma is considered to be valueless on Passover. That's the rub. That's what's tricky about this, right? Because we said that chametz cannot be consumed by a Jew on Passover, and if a Jew consumes it or possesses it, it's never going to be allowed. It'll remain prohibited. So therefore, it has no value, at least not to the Jewish people. Chametz during Passover has no value. So if you eat a chametz that happens to be teruma, that was consecrated for the priests, and now you have to replace its value plus 20%, well, what are you going to be replacing if it has no value? That's the question that's going on here. But the Mishnah says one who unwittingly eats teruma of chametz on Passover must pay the principal plus the fifth. If he intentionally eats the teruma, then he is exempt from payment. Now, right there, that's completely counterintuitive, right? So if he eats it unwittingly, by mistake, without intent, so then he has to replace what he ate to the priest or to the temple and pay the penalty of 20%. But if he did it on purpose, he is exempt from paying for what he ate and the penalty on top of it. And we'll explain why. Or here Rav Steinsaltz adds an explanation right away. He is exempt from payment as he is liable to receive the more severe punishment of karas, excision, death at the hands of the heavenly court. And he is therefore exempt from the lesser punishment of paying for what he consumed. If he ate impure teruma in this manner, right? So chametz is just prohibited during Passover. Now we're adding an additional wrinkle if it's impure, if it's tameh. Remember that teruma is for the use of priests, and it must be kept in a state of purity, of tahara, or the priest won't be allowed to eat it either. If he ate impure teruma in this manner, then he is not even required to pay its monetary value in wood, for one who derives benefit from impure teruma calculates its value by treating it as though it were fuel for burning. While impure teruma can be used in this manner during the rest of the year, one may not derive any benefit from leavened bread on Passover, and therefore such teruma is worthless. So already we have a little bit of a contradiction in that Mishnah. We learned, the explanation even includes that the teruma is worthless during Passover, because chametz is worthless during Passover. Leaven is worthless during Passover. A Jew can't eat it, a Jew can't possess it, a Jew can't benefit from it. So then why, if somebody eats this teruma unwittingly, he's supposed to replace what he ate, pay for it, and add a fifth? Well, if what he ate has no value, what is he replacing? That is the question we're going to get at in the Gemara, in the discussion of this Mishnah. Okay. Okay, so the Gemara now asks the Gemara asked the question that I've just asked. If it has no value, why do we have to replace it? Okay. So to help us answer that question, so we can understand what we're talking about here, the Gemara says, okay, let's look at a related issue. If somebody consumes teruma at any time, whether it's Passover or during the rest of the year, so a non-priest, somebody who's not entitled to eat teruma, the tithe that's set aside for the priest, no matter when you eat it, if you do it unwittingly, so you have to pay for what you ate plus 20% as a penalty. The question then is asked, well, let's say that you ate it, this teruma that you weren't allowed to eat, you ate it on Monday, right? And then you realized that you didn't even know that it was teruma. It was just some food was out there, and then later your friend, you were at your friend's house, it was sitting on the table, you ate it, later he came in and he said, oh, you didn't know what was on the table, did you? That was teruma. I set that aside as a gift for the priest. It's not for us to eat. I was like, oh man. But let's say you ate it on Monday, and by the time that you're ready to pay the priest what you owe because you consumed what you shouldn't have consumed, and the penalty, it's Thursday, let's say 4 days later, and the price of whatever the substance is that is teruma, let's say in this case it was dates, right? Let's say it's dates. So let's say that you ate dates and they happen to be set aside for the priest. They were teruma, you shouldn't have eaten them. You ate it on Monday. On Thursday, when you're ready to pay it back, the price of dates has shot up. So now what do you owe? Do you owe the value of the dates at the time that you consume them, or the value of the dates at the time that you're going to replace what you ate? Not an easy question, right? Does the money that you owe follow what it was worth when you ate it, or what it's worth when you come to pay it back? Okay, so all agree that if the price goes down, right? So if you ate the dates on Monday, these teruma dates on Monday, and by Thursday when you're ready to pay it back, the price of the dates has gone down, right? So let's say what you ate was worth $10 on Monday, and that same number of dates, if you bought them in the market on Thursday, would only cost $5. Do you owe $10 or $5? Plus an extra 20%, but we're not talking about that yet. Do you owe 10, what they were worth on Monday, or 5, what they're worth on Thursday? Answer, you owe 10. If the value goes down, you owe what they were worth when you ate them. That's just the way that this law works, irrespective of how it intersects with Passover. When you unwittingly eat teruma and then you come to pay it back, if the price went down, you owe what it was worth when you ate it, right? And everybody agrees on that. Where they disagree is if they were worth $5 on Monday when you ate them, and when you come to replace them on Thursday, the value has gone up. Now, according to, from what we learned about if the value goes down, you owe what it was worth on Monday. Well, then maybe you should just owe what it was worth on Monday. That's $5. But on the other hand, if the price has gone up when you come to pay it back, the temple or the priest is not going to be able to replace what you ate with the money that you're giving them. And so, so at least some of the opinions say you should be replacing their value on Monday, what they're worth on Thursday. Now, the way that this is actually asked is a little different than what their monetary value is. The way it's asked is, do you owe the monetary value at the time that you ate it, or do you owe the measure? Right? So the measure means that whatever you ate on Monday, how much would it cost on Thursday? It's the same result, but that's the way it's worded in the Talmud. Do you owe the money, or do you owe the measure? In other words, do you owe what they were worth on Monday, or do you owe the measure of what you ate and whatever it costs to replace that on Thursday? So Rav Yosef is going to say that, you owe the measure, right? You owe whatever it costs to replace it on Thursday, so you would owe the higher amount. If what you ate was worth $5 on Monday and it's worth $10 on Thursday, you're going to owe the $10 because it's the measure of what you ate at whatever price is current when you come to pay it back. How does Rav Yosef know that? So he brings a baraisa which teaches that if a person ate dried figs of teruma on Monday, and then when he goes to pay the priest for what he shouldn't have consumed, and he pays the priest in dates, then blessings rest upon him. Now, dates are understood to be a better food, a finer food than dried figs. So Rav Yosef is saying, well, you ate like an ordinary food and you're paying back with a higher quality food. It would seem that you're replacing it with something that is of higher value. It's going to be the same measure, let's say, the same quantity, the same amount of food, but you're paying it back with a better quality of food, dates instead of dried figs. So therefore blessings are going to be upon you for paying at that higher value on the day that you pay back compared to the day that you ate. Abaye says, well, no, actually what he's doing is he's paying the monetary value. He's going to pay if the dried figs that he ate on Monday were worth $5, then come Thursday when he's paying back, he's going to give $5 worth of dates. And then why does it say blessings rest upon this person for paying it back in dates? Says Abaye, because dates they're more desirable, right? And the fact that they're more desirable means that it's easier to sell them. In other words, $5 of dried figs compared to $5 of dates, worth the exact same amount of money. Whatever the weight is, that's $5 dried figs, $5 dates. But the dates are still better because more people like dates. So if the priest would like to, instead of eating the dates, he'd like to redeem them, the priest can do that. He can sell it. That would be redeemed teruma. The money still goes to a priest so that the point of the tithe is honored. But if the priest would rather have money than the dates, he can go out and sell them, and it's going to be easier to sell dates than dried figs because more people like dates, at least in that community as it's being described to us here on our page of the Talmud. So Abaye is saying we go by the monetary value at the time that you ate, but it would be nice if you could pay it off in a good fungible commodity rather than something that the priest is going to have difficulty unloading if he chooses to sell rather than consume. Now, my question as I was reading this is, I think Abaye's right, and if you read the exact language of this baraisa, why would blessings be upon you for giving something that's a little bit better at the time that you pay back if it was mandatory, right? If it was mandatory, well, then that's just what you have to do. It's the halakha, it's the law. But it sounds like if blessings are upon you, it's because you're going a little bit above and beyond the measure of the law. And so it seems to me that Abaye is right. And indeed, that is going to be the law, that what you owe is the monetary value at the time that you ate it, right? The time that you ate it, not the measure of what you ate, which might be priced at a higher price at the time that you come to pay back. All right, now we go back to our Mishna, right? So this person now is going to unwittingly eat teruma during Passover, and the teruma that he's eating is chametz. It's a wrinkle because he shouldn't be eating chametz, that's for sure. Chametz is prohibited at Passover. The fact that it's teruma doesn't make that any less prohibited. It's just any chametz, any leavened bread, leavened products during Passover, prohibited. All right. So back to our Mishnah. If he pays the measure of this chametz of teruma during Passover, all is well. In other words, if he's giving it, so he ate this chametz, right? He ate this chametz. So if it's more like Rav Yosef, that we take the measure of what he ate, and then when he comes to pay it back, let's say after Passover, all right, so what did you eat? Let's say I ate one loaf of bread. I had a whole loaf of bread during Passover, and it was teruma. It technically belonged to a priest, or it was set aside for the priests. And I ate a loaf of bread. So now, because it was teruma, I'm going to pay it back after Passover. I'm going to pay back a loaf, right? Whatever a loaf of bread is worth now, after Passover, a loaf of bread has value. But the thing is, so that makes sense according to Rav Yosef, where what we owe is the measure, not the monetary value. But if the law actually goes with Abaye, and what we pay back is the monetary value, then it doesn't make sense, because this chametz, even though it was teruma, during Passover, had no monetary value. Nobody could eat it. It was prohibited to all the Jews. So how do we solve this problem? Because the Mishnah says that one who unwittingly eats teruma of chametz during Passover owes the principal plus a fifth. So how do we reconcile this? So one approach is that, well, it does have value according to the minority opinion of Rabbi Yosei HaGalili. Rabbi Yosei HaGalili said, we're not permitted to eat chametz. We're not permitted to consume chametz during Passover. But according to him, it is permitted to benefit from chametz during Passover. But that's very much a minority opinion. Everybody else disagrees with Rabbi Yosei HaGalili. And moreover, this does not accord with the latter part of our Mishnah, where it says that if somebody did it intentionally, if he ate this chametz intentionally, this chametz teruma intentionally, then there is no payment because it has no value. Now you could say, well, no, actually the reason that there's no payment is because he's subject to kares for eating chametz. He's subject to death at the hands of the heavenly court because he ate leavened during Passover. And that more severe punishment overrides the lesser punishment of paying back what you consumed with the 20% penalty. Hold on a second. But in that case, therefore. Okay, now the Tosefta says, one who eats teruma, so we haven't really reconciled it yet. Why, if it has no value, the Mishnah is saying you have to pay back what it owes. So maybe it's that you're paying back the measure, but we've already established that no, the law seems you pay back the monetary value. So let's see, here's another teaching that might clarify the problem. This is from a Tosefta, right? So Mishnahs, Baraisas, and Toseftas are all pretty much contemporaneous, and these are the rulings of the Tanaim, the earlier rabbis. The most authoritative are the Mishnahs. Baraisas are like Mishnahs that didn't quite make it into the Mishnah. Tosefta is like the very first layer of commentary on the Mishnah, but even by the rabbis of the Mishnaic period. So we have a Tosefta which says, one who eats teruma of chametz on Passover, whether intentionally or unintentionally, is exempt from payment and for its monetary value in wood. This is the ruling of Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva seems to be saying, no, it has no value. So you're exempt even if you did it, whether unwittingly or wittingly. The thing that you ate has no value, so there's not going to be a way to pay it back. Now, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri disagrees with Rabbi Akiva. He says, no, the person is liable. So that's like our Mishnah. Rabbi Akiva says, well, what benefit could the priest have derived from this teruma during Passover? It was prohibited for benefit, prohibited for possession, prohibited for eating. Since it was prohibited for all these things, there was no value to the priest of that teruma. So the person who ate this chametz that was set aside as teruma, what value did he eat? What value did he consume? So Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, he doesn't say, well, the priest, it did have value. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says, well, wait a minute, during the rest of the year, if a person consumes teruma that was tameh, in a state of ritual impurity, that also could not be consumed by the priest, but nevertheless, we all agree that one who consumes teruma, even though it's tameh, has to replace what he consumed and add the 20% penalty. So even though the priest couldn't eat it because it was tameh, the non-priest who ate it has to pay the priest for what he ate and and give the 20% penalty. Rabbi Akiva says to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, that's different. That's different. It's different because during the year, the fact that this teruma was tameh, that it was impure, so the priest couldn't eat it, does not rule out the possibility that the priest could benefit from it. What's an example of that? Let's say we're talking about teruma of olive oil. Olive oil could both be eaten, or it could be used for rubbing your skin, anointing oneself, or it could be used for burning in a lamp, right? In an oil lamp. So even though the priest couldn't eat it because it was impure, he certainly could burn it in a lamp and get light from it. It was not prohibited for benefit. Therefore, when the Yisrael, the non-priest, consumed that olive oil, that teruma, even though it was tameh, it was in a state of ritual impurity, something had come into contact with it that rendered it impure and therefore not okay for the priest to eat it. Nevertheless, it still had value, and that's what the person is replacing. On the other hand, says Rabbi Akiva, chametz, leavened, during Passover, the priest can't eat it, he can't possess it, and he can't benefit from it in any way, so it has no value to the priest. Okay, so Rabbi Akiva holds that it is forbidden. So it is forbidden to benefit from chametz during Pesach. That's part of his assumption, right? That you can't. It's not only that you can't eat it or possess it. It's prohibited to benefit from chametz during Pesach. And what does one pay? Not the measure, as Rav Yosef said, but the monetary value, as Abaye said, right? One pays the monetary value of what he ate. That's what he owes. Since the monetary value of chametz during Passover is 0, what does he owe? 0. What's 20% of 0 on top of the penalty? 0. So that's why he owes nothing. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri agrees that one is prohibited to benefit from chametz during Passover, but Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says what one owes is the measure, not the monetary value. So however much chametz you ate, that's how much you owe when the chametz resumes its normal value after Passover. But the law follows Rabbi Akiva. So if one consumes chametz, and I'm almost done here, I'm right at the end, so if you have questions or comments, make sure you get them in there. The law follows Rabbi Akiva. I was just going to read that. Right, so we see one pays, hold on a second, there was 2 places. Teruma of leavened bread on Passover. So this is how the law finally was worked out. A non-priest who eats teruma of leavened bread during Passover is exempt from payment, regardless of whether he did so intentionally or unwittingly, like the Tosefta said, and whether it was ritually pure or ritually impure. And this follows the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Also, if a non-priest eats teruma, this is at any time of the year, he must reimburse the priest according to the value of the teruma at the time when he ate it. The monetary value at the time that he ate it, not the measure of what he ate, priced at the time that he comes to return it, regardless of whether its value subsequently increased or decreased. And this ruling is based on the Gemara's understanding of the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. And the last thing is that the Gemara will note when, as we've discussed at other times, when we're talking about, so you become liable when you eat something, well, what's the minimum amount for liability? What's the minimum amount of food that has to go into you so that you have actually performed the activity, in this case, the prohibited activity of eating? And so, as is often the case, the minimum amount that you eat, and you would call that eating, the way it's defined in the Torah, would be a ketzayas, which is about the volume of an olive, right? So an olive bulk, if you eat less than that, you haven't really eaten, right? And so if you ate less than that of teruma, so what is the law? If you eat a ketzayas, an olive bulk or more, so then you have to pay the monetary value of what you ate. You eat an olive bulk of teruma, consecrated food for the priest. So you have to pay for what you ate and 20% on top of it, and it's the monetary value of what you ate at the time that you ate it. If you eat less than the olive bulk, you still have to pay for what you ate. It won't be much. They say that the minimum amount of paying is 1 peruta, like basically a penny. So if you eat less than a penny's worth, still, that's what you owe. You owe the money of what you ate. But if it's less than an olive bulk, there's no penalty, because the penalty comes on eating. The replacing is just because you have to replace what you ate of the priest. But the ruling, which includes a penalty, is only if you ate and you didn't eat unless you had an olive bulk. Okay, that's what I've got for us tonight. Let's check comments or questions. We have a comment from Bill. He says, "Hey, Ron, been there, my friend. Here's to all the de facto family chaplains out there. Amen." And Hannah Silverman says, "The Psalms are a treasure." If you're joining us late, you might want to, after we finish, go back and watch the beginning of today, where I tell a story about our friend of the show, Ron Werner, who dedicated tonight's episode to his mother, Florence. And he went deep on Psalm 26, and it inspired me to go deep on Psalm 26. And so I read Psalm 26 and explored what it is about and what we aspire to make it about. And Crystal Dahlberg says Tehillim 26 is one of my favorites. And a viewer from Algeria, Khalil Ababu, posted in Arabic, and this is the translation. "Good morning, my friend." Wow, good morning to you. Sending you greetings in Algeria from here in Los Angeles. It's so great that we're an international community, and we reach out to you with a big hug and lots of warmth to you over there, Khalil in Algeria, or Jalil. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, but wishing you all the best. Okay, I know Nina stepped out, but I just want to make sure there's nothing else. I think we're good. So thank you all for joining us tonight. Tomorrow is Thursday, and with God's help, we'll be together again for page 33 of Tractate Pesachim. Have a great night. Good Shabbos.